Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. My guest today is Dave Scott. Dave is the host and creator of Spaced Out Radio, dedicated to exploring the mysteries of the universe and the unknown. With the tagline of We Own the Night. Spaced Out Radio has become a platform for deep discussions on UFOs, paranormal phenomena, cryptozoology, and other topics that fascinate both experts and enthusiasts alike. Can we please welcome Dave to the show? Hello there.
Hi, Bob. Good to be with you. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Thank you. What's the earliest paranormal experience you can remember, and how did it shape your interest in the unexplained?
Good question. My earliest paranormal investigation, well, not investigation, memory was I was about 20 years old. I was working at a hockey rink, a training facility where I was a hockey instructor.
All right.
And this place just had weird things going on. Weird things. And it was, I don't know what it was with this building, but there was just so much activity there from hearing footsteps to seeing figures to the a weird fire that took place inside the building that uh should have with the ice system that should have never happened. It had never happened in that manufacturer's history. It was a lot of different stuff that kind of happened there. And I remember one time I had some friends with me, and everybody outside of me and my two friends had left the building. The front door was locked up, and I was just cleaning up the dressing rooms before my friends and I were going to go out that night. And we started hearing the extremely distinct sounds of hockey pucks hitting the plexiglass. And if you've been in a hockey rink, that it makes an extremely distinct sound that just absolutely was weird. So I looked at my cousin, who was one of my friends with us, and I said, "Is there somebody on the ice?" And he's like, "Don't think so." But we kept hearing the hockey pucks hitting the glass.
Oh my God.
And I ran out to the rink, which was about, 45, 50 feet away. And there wasn't a soul on the ice. There wasn't a puck on the ice. It was extremely, extremely trippy. And did that put me on my path? No, no. But it was my first paranormal experience that just didn't make sense to me, and it kind of creeped me out. I mean, you don't expect to go to work and have to deal with hauntings on. It wasn't
No.
a daily basis, but it was happening frequently.
Well, yeah. It can be very frightening. Have you ever had an encounter that genuinely frightened you or challenged your beliefs?
Oh, that is one I got to think of, my man. Uh,
They'll come to you.
Nothing that challenged my beliefs. I was always a believer in ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot. Anytime that popped up on the television, I would watch it, whether I was a kid or a young adult or whatever. It just kind of fascinated me. You know, was was there a situation that changed my perception of a new reality? Yes. That would have been on December 13th, 2011, when I saw the angel of death in my mother's eyes, or what I perceived to be the angel of death in my mother's eyes. And then, not knowing what channeling was, 2 hours later, I ended up channeling the angel of death, and he told me that I shouldn't have seen him. But because I did, he felt he owed me an explanation that my mother was uh, indeed quite ill, and that if we didn't show her more love and more respect, he was going to take her home. He didn't say heaven or hell. He just
No.
said, "Take her home." And it was an eye opener for me because I really, like I said, I believed in all of this stuff, but it always happened to other people. It never happened to me.
Do you think we,
And
when you talk about that, do you think we are chosen then to receive information?
I'm sorry?
Do you think we are chosen? Some people are chosen to
I
see
think so.
things.
I don't know why I was. I mean, I was living a happily boring life. I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't researching it. Did I watch, the paranormal television shows? Because that was during the time when TV shows like Paranormal State and Ghost Hunters were on television. And I enjoyed watching those shows. It kind of creeped me out a little bit. I didn't want anything like this to happen. I didn't know that there was this giant community of experiential people and people who were curious about this. I didn't know anything, and I was frankly okay with that, but it wasn't until this happened that I was like, okay, I need to take this a little bit more seriously and see where it's going to go. And being a former radio journalist at the time, am one of the only true journalists in our field today, not a self-titled makeup, one for credibility. I was, very much questioning absolutely everything. When something would happen, I would immediately get 100 questions that I knew I couldn't investigate, right? So it was a little odd, but it was something that it kind of started to define who I was and what I was trying to do in life.
Hmm, interesting. When you investigate the paranormal events, what signs or patterns do you look for that tell you something unusual is happening?
I don't, Bob, I'm going to contradict your question a little bit here, and I don't mean it to be rude.
No, no, you're fine.
I don't consider myself a researcher or an investigator. I only started really investigating last year in a place that we call Flight 21. And prior to that, when I would go out into the bush to look for Bigfoot or stare up at the stars for a UFO or whatever, I did it without any cameras. I did it without any microphones. I didn't care. I just wanted to have the experience so that way I could say, "Oh my god, I actually saw that," or "Oh my god, I actually witnessed or experienced that." Like being an actual true investigator or researcher, I never saw that as my title. It wasn't until last year, well, probably around November 2024, when I started getting haunted by the Flight 21 location where literally it was coming to me at night in dreams and during the day in like not really daydreams, but just like images in my head. And it's like, where are you? It's time to come back.
Hmm.
And that's when I figured I remember talking to my buddies about it. And I said, I don't know what to do with this. Like I'm not an investigator, and yet here I was being presented, by the phenomenon on what I should be doing, how I should be treating things and how I should be doing this. And it opened my eyes about how not only amateur that I was with it, but it also opened my eyes to a portion of the phenomena that I wasn't used to doing, which was asking more difficult questions about what is going on while still experiencing strange phenomenon as it happens.
Yeah, I understand that. Um, can you walk us through your most compelling Bigfoot sighting or encounter?
I would say the most compelling one for me was my first sighting in 2023, where a friend we were a friend of mine at the time had this 10-acre property in the backwoods of Mission, British Columbia. And he wanted to take me beyond his field into the forest, whereas a kid, because the property had been in his family for 40 plus years at that time.
Right.
He wanted to take me back to this place where he had had a weird experience with a buddy of his when he was like 9 or 10 years old. And we started walking down this trail, and it was a couple hundred yards into the forest, where all of a sudden we came across this extremely healthy tree. Okay, that was probably 8 inches, 9 inches, maybe 10 inches in diameter, like pretty thick,
Yeah.
but it was snapped at about 8 feet tall, at 8 feet high off the ground. And it was fresh because the part that had fallen over or been toppled was the bark was still wet, like it had just happened. It wasn't the biggest of trees, but it was still a big tree. And I kind of jokingly said in my extremely amateur investigation of Bigfoot at that time, I said, Bigfoot is known for tearing down trees. And we just kind of looked at this tree, and it was just, there was something weird about it. And then all of a sudden we started getting this feeling that we were being watched, and not thinking Bigfoot at that time, but black bears, mountain lions, they roamed that area. And, you got to be careful when you are in those areas, and Mother Nature has a way of camouflaging her animals to the point where you can't see them. So we started looking around, and then underneath the canopy of this old growth Douglas fir tree, we started seeing something kind of leaning out from the shadows of it. And it was kind of peering in or peering out, that it would pull back, that it would peer out, and then it would pull back. And we could see the shape of the face and what looked to be a shoulder and an arm. And I said, buddy, are you seeing that? And he's like, yeah. I said, is that a Bigfoot? Is that a Sasquatch? And he goes, I think it might be, and it just kept doing this, the peering in and out, in and out. And I didn't know that Sasquatch did that at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that was one of the traits that it did, but we were watching this. And after about 5 minutes, my buddy says, hey, man, let's leave this thing alone. Let's get out of here. And it was very peaceful. Like we said, we waved at it and said goodbye. Now, what's strange about the few seconds after this was I'm left-handed. I always turn to my, I don't have the problem that Derek Zoolander does. I always turn to the left first. Okay. And I turned to my right to instead of going to my left back down the trail, I did like this 360 turn with to my right. And as I was turning, if this first Sasquatch, or what we believed was a Sasquatch, was like at high noon, at say 1 o'clock, as I'm turning, I see this tree branch shaking, and it's shaking vigorously. And that's where I saw the second one about 70 feet away walk right through where that tree branch was shaking. And it was literally the biggest thing I've ever seen. Okay, it was probably 7 feet tall. Its shoulders were like massive. I got a right side and back profile of it. It never turned to look at me. I saw the color of the hair, which was like a cinnamon brown. It had no neck. It just went into the pointy conical shape head. Okay, and it just kept on walking. And I yelled over at my buddy, there's a second one. Did you see it? It just walked right there. In the meantime, he's probably 40, 50 feet down the trail. And I just started running towards him. I'm like, dude, there was a second one. There was a second one. So that was probably the most profound sighting of Bigfoot that I've had. I've only seen one more, and that was in 2022 with two of my buddies and my son. It was about 9:45 at night. We were in an area where we had found footprints before, and we saw the classic Bigfoot pose. My buddy Mark had heard a tree branch break off in the distance, and it was a full moon. It was Canadian Thanksgiving, October 2022, so that's around October 8th, and it was this beautiful silhouette, like, the typical silhouette you see people draw about Bigfoot, the
Yeah.
arms out to the side and the feet kind of to the side or spread apart. And we actually went back a couple days later. We measured him because there was a tree right there that we could measure him by, that he was standing by. We measured him at about 10 feet compared to that tree. The tree was about 8 feet tall at that point. So we measured him taller than that. We don't know how he left. If he would have went to our right, his left, he would have had to climb over some dirt mounds and then some fallen trees in the area, which we would have heard. We didn't. If he would have went to his right, our left, he would have had to cross the logging road and go up about a 6-7 foot embankment. We would have seen that. If he came closer, we would have seen him do that. If he walked backwards into the dark, we would have seen him disappear into the dark. But he just vanished. We don't know how. Like, one second, we got the flashlights up, and then we took a couple of steps, and as you're stepping, the flashlight kind of moves, and we focused in on the spot again. Like, within like 3-4 seconds, he was gone. Like, we don't know how he left. And then about 10 minutes later, we heard his buddy way deep in the forest start whooping with one just woo, kind of sounding like Ric Flair. And about 15, 20 minutes after that, we heard the same woo closer. So we knew they were there in the area. We knew we were being watched, and it was kind of cool. And in that one spot, we've found prints. The smallest prints we found were about 9 inches, juvenile type prints.
Yeah.
The biggest prints we found in that area were 19 inches.
Big difference.
Yeah. So we know we're in an area right there. So that was kind of the start of my love for trying to track down Sasquatch.
Brilliant. Do you think Bigfoot is physical creature, or is it interdimensional beings, or something entirely different?
The politically correct answer to that is we don't know. We really do not know, Bob, and it is going to be the argument forever until somebody actually gets a Sasquatch species, gets a body, or captures a live one. Personally, I believe it is a combination of both. I believe that there is something extremely supernatural about this creature, but I also believe it is flesh and blood, which has perfected its environment. Okay, I have learned more. I grew up in the city. Okay, I grew up in one of the suburbs about an hour east of Vancouver. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I moved north to this little town, and I had to learn the wilderness from scratch.
I bet you did as well.
Oh, dude, it was an eye opener. I mean, I think of all the times I went into the forest with my family, with no pointy sticks to protect us. that go boom. I look at how many times we went in the forest without bear spray. And here you're in grizzly bear territory. You're in
Oh,
black bear territory. You're in moose territory. You're in wolf pack territory, mountain lion territory. And now, I mean, when I go out in the forest, even if I'm just going for a drive with my family, I decided a couple of years ago, being an extremely anti firearms person, um, I decided to educate myself. I decided to face one of my lifetime fears, and I went to and took the courses that Canada asks you to take in order to be licensed, and I educated myself. And I was very much in awe of how wrong my previous thinking was. So now when I go into the forest, I am always going into an area where there is potential for encounters with animals. And I think that I'm as prepared as I can be to make sure that everybody that I am with, and myself included, is safe. So it's a different way of thinking regarding that, Bob.
I can imagine so as well. Have you noticed any increase in UFO sightings recently, either personally or through your audience?
I haven't seen a UFO in a long time, like couple years, long time. Um, I'm and to be blunt with you, I'm getting sick of the UFO world. I really am getting sick of the UFO world. I hate the term UAP. I'm not a UAPer. It's kind of like to me, it's like running fingers down a chalkboard when I hear somebody UAP this, UAP that. Okay, you're just trying to be trendy, right? With the newfound terms, you're trying to give yourself this imaginary credibility due to UAP. It's kind of like I've learned a number of things over the years. I'm going off on a tangent here, Bob. I hope
No,
you don't.
hey, no problem.
Okay. I've learned in 10 years, 10 and a half years, we're in year 11 of spaced out radio right now. I've learned a couple of things um, about this phenomena. For instance, when people in the paranormal, they're part of a paranormal team, the minute that they start using the word science, that they are conducting scientific experimentation on paranormal phenomena, I know their team is BS. I know their research is BS because this is a phenomena that does not follow scientific method. Okay. A majority of the people in the paranormal haven't conducted a scientific experiment, myself included, have not conducted a scientific experiment since probably high school. Okay. They forget that it's a hypothesis, procedure, purpose, procedure, investigation, conclusion. They don't follow any of the rules, but they figure if they go buy $900 worth of paranormal gear that makes lights go beep, 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 that immediately that they are going to be conducting scientific experimentation. It's the same thing with the cryptid world. When I hear Bigfoot, people looking for Bigfoot, or squatching or squatch, okay, I know that their research is garbage right off the bat. That they're there for the fun, they're there for themselves, they're there for popularity. Okay, I had a conversation with the late Dr. John Bindernagel, who was an anthropologist in British Columbia, famous across North America and the world for his Sasquatch research. He
Hmm.
started investigating Sasquatch at the age of 14, and he did it until he died at the age of 85. And he became an anthropologist because of Sasquatch. And I remember asking him, this was in the start of Not Finding Bigfoot show, where there's Squatch this, Squatch that. There's a Squatch, that's a Squatch, everywhere a Squatch, Squatch. Okay. And the term just irked me. It felt icky on the subject when I first watched the only 18 minutes of that show I ever watched. And I asked him, I said, what do you think about this term Squatch? And he stood up. He was a tall man and he stood up straight. He let out a very deep sigh and he says, 70 years of research flushed down the toilet by one stupid word. And from then on, I banned the word squatch because anything that is squatching or squatcherific or whatever, it tells me, and as we furthered our conversation, it told me, and what I've learned from watching people online and talking to others, that you're there for the entertainment factor. You're not there for the actual knowledge or quest. You're there to try and get social media famous because that's what they do. People are copycats. And when they see something on TV or somebody of position use a term, they end up following that path because they think it's going to bring more credibility to what they do. So that's what I learned about Bigfoot people who squatch. So when we move over to the UAP or the NHI of UFOs, it's kind of a little bit twofold because I've talked to a lot of insiders who have, never mind the fact that I hated the term the first time I really started hearing it come out in 2017, with the To the Stars Academy. But I really started noticing as I talk to insiders who aren't always on camera, aren't always doing interviews or at conferences or whatever, that the term UAP is really for man-made objects. They don't know what a UFO is. So they had to redefine in their minds, never mind this. They'll tell you, oh, it's the stigma of UFOs, of flying discs, of anal probes, and alien, the little green men running around. It's not what it is at all. It's a cover term that they came up with to hide human-made projects. Now, that could be anything from a balloon that gets caught in the atmosphere and just is floating up to 25, 30,000 feet. It could be an airplane that has the sun shining off of it at just this right glint where it looks like a giant white orb. It could be a garbage bag. It could be a bird. It could be a drone. But the one thing we know it's not, from the people I talk to on the inside, it's not a UFO. And that's why I made the t-shirt on my website that says, friends don't let friends UAP. So I apologize for going off on that little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to explain how I got to that point.
Yeah, hey, absolutely no problem. Dave, tell us about the sighting of 5 extraterrestrial species, and you called one of them, nicknamed Carl.
Carl. I've only had 2 interactions with Carl. This is part of my personal woo. I was doing my radio show one night. Oh, it was April 20th. Yes, I know it's 420. Okay, people, were you smoking pot that day? Dave doesn't smoke pot. Okay, Dave doesn't do the hippie lettuce or anything like that. Okay. I was doing my show and I was in my old house and I had this little makeshift rinky-dink studio at the front of my house, which was an old bedroom that I converted into a studio. And I was kind of sitting on an angle, like I wish you could see my office here, but I'm sitting on an angle in my room. My real room is facing this way.
Right.
Okay, but I'm sitting here facing this way for you. Okay. And to my left, a couple of feet away, I had this big window. And outside, the wall that I was kind of facing like I'm facing you. Behind it was a wall where right behind that wall was my front door. And what was weird about that was I'm somebody who always has the outside lights on at my house. Okay. My outside lights are always on. And it was night number 3 that I had figured, I don't need to turn the outside lights on. What the hell? It doesn't matter. And we had one of those houses where it wasn't out of the ordinary for a friend to pop by at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night for a coffee or a tea or whatever. We had an open door policy with our friends because I always wanted that. I always wanted to have the house where our friends were always welcome at any time of the day. And as I'm interviewing a guy named Harvey Kraft, we're talking about Buddha of all topics that night. He's talking, and I see something move out of the corner of my eye out the window. And I put my microphone on mute because I was literally thinking, crap, I have 2 dogs, a Chihuahua Dachshund cross. Okay, that's a barkaholic. If there's a crosswind, that's 30 minutes of barking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when she got going, the bigger dog got going as well. And so I'm thinking, crap, somebody has forgotten I got my radio show, one of our friends, they're coming to the front door, they're going to knock, that's going to set the dogs off crazy, which isn't going to sound good for the show. So after a couple of, and Harvey's talking in my earphones, I put my microphone back on, to ask him another question. And I don't, as I'm listening to him, I realize that there is no barking at my door. So who's at my front door? Who's out in my yard? And I turn my chair and I turn to look out the window. And staring back at me, I see this bulbous gray head with the big almond shaped eyes staring back at me. So I did what any man would do. I screamed like a banshee. Thank goodness my microphone was on mute. And I fell back in my chair. And then I popped up. I got up to look at the window again, and it was gone. And I would have seen anybody or anything running away, but it was just gone. It vanished. And I remember going back on air and I said, I just had something weird happen. And that I ended up calling after the show a friend of mine named R. Keith Andrews, who's an ET contactee and a very good friend of mine.
Hmm.
And I told him what happened. He'd never been to my house. He lived 4.5 hours away. Never saw a picture of my house. And he psychically, intuitively read my property. He goes, "You live on the south side of your street, don't you?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Your house is kind of on a slope." He goes, "I don't know if you live on a mountain or not, but your house," he goes, "I'm getting a slope." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "And there's a slope between your neighbor's house and yours. And the distance between your 2 houses," because I lived in a cul-de-sac, he goes, "maybe 20 feet apart." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's where the craft was parked." And I'm like, "That is weird." I said, "How? Why? Why me? Why my show?" And he goes, "Dave," he goes, "you're forgetting, you're broadcasting. When your signal goes out, it's going out in the universe. Somebody probably picked it up and said, 'Hey, I want to see what this is all about. Who is this guy?'" And that's how the legend of Carl started.
Amazing, isn't it? How things go like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a premonition that came true? in a way you could not explain.
Yes. Uh, Shortly after I had the encounter with the angel of death, um, I have to be careful how I tell this story. A former female friend of mine used to be a model. She used to date a famous rock star uh, in a band that tours all around the world. And she broke up with him, or he dumped her right in front of me while her and I were having breakfast and she was on the phone with him. And I kept telling her, I said, there's going to be somebody bigger coming, somebody bigger name coming. I said, I don't know who it is, but I'll know when it happens. So a few days after this incident uh, with my mother and the angel of death, I end up going to a rock concert with a couple people. She's one of the ones included. And I see this guy on stage. And I couldn't keep my eyes off of him. Don't know why, but he just triggered me. And I was just amazed by him. I kept watching him and watching him. Couldn't keep my eyes off him. And I lean over to my partner and I said to her, I said, that's our friend's next boyfriend. And literally about 3 minutes later, our friends who are sitting a couple rows behind us, I get a tap on my shoulder and she says, oh my God, I'm in love. That's my next boyfriend. And 9 months later, in Las Vegas, she run or 8, 9 months. Hold on, that was December. 11 months later, pardon me. She runs into him face to face in Las Vegas, and he would not leave her alone. He was smitten by her. So they dated and chatted for a little bit. Nothing ever panned out for it, but that was
No.
still pretty incredible on a lot of synchronicities on that one. I'm still kind of impressed by that one by myself.
Yeah, we're going to say that about, is it a form of intuition, a psychic ability, or something else?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think some people have got the ability to do things like that, and things do come true. And
Yeah,
it, and what
yeah.
you
I
picked up
think
there,
I think everybody has the ability. A lot of people don't tap into it. Bob, you know, I worked with a guru of mine. I call him a guru. He's not technically a guru, but he's a guru to me. His name is Pascal. And I when he opened me up, I remember him saying, "How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?" And I made the mistake of saying, "All the way." And it opened me up to situations that I could never explain. Many people in the intuitive supernatural community would say that um, it was what they call being fast tracked because everything happened to me when I was like 38 years old, right? Like I wasn't a kid that grew up on paranormal or intuitive experiences. I didn't even think about it, right? So I just ended up kind of rolling with the punches on everything and living life. And it wasn't until I was 38 with that incident with my mom that I ended up, all of a sudden going on a deep dive. And then Pascal says, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? I mean, there are things that I think the human mind can do that we have no clue. Okay. I know that I've remote viewed and I know I've astral traveled. Can I tell you how I knew how I did? No. I just know I can do it. Right?
mm,
Intuitively speaking, there are people who, I can read. There are people who I don't get anything from. Do I practice it? No. Do I have time to practice it? Hell no.
No, definitely not.
So it's something that I think everybody has the ability to do it. It's whether or not they have that aha moment that will open them up and allow themselves to see more than what they are.
Yeah. How did you get into radio?
I got my post-secondary education in broadcast communications. So I spent 10 years or nearly 10 years in terrestrial radio. I quit in 2007 and because I was just extremely frustrated. And more than that, I was extremely poor. Radio, it's weird. It's such a beautiful, beautiful medium. To me, it's my favorite. Way better than television. Way better than social media. Way better than um, newspaper. But it's the lowest paid, and I, I wanted to know what it was like to have food on my table and gas in my tank at the same time. And it's funny because one of the things in the company I worked for, they forced you to take your vacation time every year. And because I made as little as what I was making, I was always having to have staycations. And so even today, like I'm exhausted, man. I am so exhausted. I work a full-time job during the day. I work the radio show 5 days a week, and I'm exhausted. So
It's hard work.
people will say, "Well, why don't you take some time off?" Well, what am I going to do? My radio studio is from home, okay?
Yeah.
So if I take a week off, what am I going to do? I'm going to change rooms and go watch TV. Why not do something that I'm going to enjoy, which is talking on the radio?
Hmm.
What makes me happier, watching reruns of sports highlights or talking on the radio about Bigfoot or aliens? It's always going to be, the latter. So I don't believe in staycations. If I'm taking time off, I want to be going somewhere where I'm going to be able to enjoy what I want to do. So I took a 7-year hiatus from radio, and then I had a person convince me to start Spaced Out Radio, which I did. Um, I was extremely naive when I started. If I would have known what I know now, I probably never would have started. Um, we've also, over the last number of years, seen a massive influx of podcasts, YouTube channels, Twitch channels,
Mm.
Facebook lives of all of these people coming in and wanting to talk, which dilutes audience, which, you know what? Everybody has their ability to free speech and do what they want. Can't say anything about it. Is it frustrating at times? Yeah. Okay. But I think the market is really oversaturated. And then when you add into the fact now that so many of these people have advanced the technology and the editing and the program perspective where it looks like you're watching on real television when you're watching on YouTube, with cuts and edits and close-ups and music and all of the things that would happen prior. The little guy out there, whether that's you or me or anybody, doesn't have a shot at getting an audience anymore. you
True.
know and then you add to the fact that many of the social mediums out there like YouTube, which we're on right now, have shadow banned the majority of channels that deal with any of the subjects we love. It's not a popularity point for them anymore, so they pushed us to the background. I mean, I was getting at times I was getting up to 300 people in my chat room live, and now I struggle to get 150.
I know.
My viewership on the YouTube channel, and this is something we are constantly monitoring. Like if we go back 3 years ago, my YouTube channel, I was getting about to 1,800 to 2,500 views a video, which was good for me because I don't focus on YouTube. I focus a lot more on my terrestrial radio
Yeah.
stations that we have. Um, and so I ended up, we're down now where we're lucky to get 1,100 views a video. Now, has people's okay, you have to look at the logistics of that. Okay, there's going to be people who don't like your opinion, so they go somewhere else. There's going to be people who hear a story about you that may or may not be true. It's not just me, it's other people too. So all of a sudden they tune out. It's going to be politically driven. It's going to be time, people's shifts change. I've had a number of extremely loyal listeners say, hey, man, my company got bought. I'm now having to work nights. I don't get a chance to hear your show anymore. Okay. Divorce happens, death happens. Um, you know, lifestyle changes happen. So you're always trying to move and create a new audience. But when your channel or when many channels, and I was talking to Martin Willis from um, Podcast UFO. It was a Podcast UFO. Yeah, Podcast UFO. And he went, his channel has like 50,000 plus subscribers, and he went from getting like 8, 9,000, 10,000 views a show down to like 3,000. Right. So at times it really makes you sit back and wonder, is it worth it anymore? Because you're not making enough to afford an editing staff. You're
Yeah.
having to do it all on your own. Then you have to compete because you have to put out all of the shorts, which I am terrible at. Okay, absolutely terrible. You have to put them on TikTok. You have to put them on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and what other mediums that are out there. You have to do that all. And it comes down to the fact of, is it worth it? It's getting too hard that if you don't have a team that is behind you, that is going to, you know, volunteer or take a a pittance of a quarter in order to um, make it happen, then you're caught in that lower echelon, and it sucks when you put in the time. Luckily, I have the radio stations. I mean, I have almost, I heard the numbers from one of our radio stations in Apache Junction that, our show is open to 90,000 listeners a night,
Brilliant.
right? And when you add it up with with the other radio stations that I have, we're probably in that 200 to 300,000 range on terrestrial radio. That's kind of cool to think about,
Mm.
right?
I remember when I first started out on Blog Talk Radio all
Yep.
them years ago, I think 2014. There weren't many people doing shows then.
Yeah. Yeah. Blog Talk Radio is a nightmare, man.
God, no, it was.
Did you ever get the hackers come into your channel and ruin things?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I did. Phoning in and talking a load of rubbish, and you had to try and knock them off. And oh, God.
Yeah.
It was hard work. It was hard going.
Yeah. It was pretty. Blog Talk Radio was horrible. Absolutely horrible. I could not wait to get off of that.
Same here. Exactly. It's just that it was just so hard work. You never knew what was going to happen.
No, I remember on Blog Talk Radio, my show, it happened every 4 to 6 weeks. where these hackers would come in, and Blog Talk Radio always denied that they had hackers. I said, I am paying for the premier service of this to broadcast my show, and I don't even have control of my own studio on nights. When are you going to do something about it? I remember one time I couldn't even turn my show off, and these people were playing the most horrific audio clips and, very, very unlike me, you know, where it was extremely racist, it was extremely sexually graphic. It was horrible. And I remember going to calling Blog Talk Radio, and I finally said to them, I said, "Look, I need to talk to a human being. This is happening once every 4 to 6 weeks. What is going on here? What kind of program?" "Well, we don't have any record of hackings." I said, "I know you do because I have friends on Blog Talk Radio who are having the same issue and have reported it to you. I've personally reported this to you about 18 times." Right? Yeah, they were a hacking nightmare, right? It was horrible.
Yeah, you never knew who was going to call in as well. You think, oh, I'll call here, and it goes through, and it's somebody wants to talk about a load of rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wanted to slag you off.
That's one of the reasons why, Bob, I don't take callers on
Yeah,
Spaced Out
exactly.
Radio. I
Best
don't,
way. Best way, I think.
you know? It's one of the reasons why I don't take callers is because of that Blog Talk Radio experience. Now, if I was working as an independent, I'm working out of my own studio, but if I was working for a major radio corporation, I would have a producer, okay, who could screen the calls. We'd have what we call a cough button in the business,
Yeah.
where it's a 10-second delay on the show. And that way, whatever happened, let's say you get somebody who thinks they're going to be a smart aleck and say something disgusting, you have the ability to cut that time out and it doesn't affect the show. That's the producer's job. You have a producer who will, who you could sit there where if you got a caller who calls in and they might be nicest one of the nicest people, but a lot of times we're dealing with people at night who are lonely. So even though you're talking UFOs, if you let them ramble on, next thing you know, they're telling you, about the gout in their feet and what they bought at the grocery store yesterday, or how they forgot to change the covers on their pillows, or whatever it may be, and a producer, you can just cut that off immediately. You behind the scenes without a camera, the rule is you kind of go like this to them,
Yeah.
cut it off,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it'd be, "Oh, all right, James, thank you for that great call. Sorry about your gout flare and great UFO story. Let's go over to Maria," right? I mean, that's really the way it works in terrestrial radio when you don't have one of these camera things that's pointed at you all the time, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, when we talk about UFOs, do you think we'll ever get disclosure then?
No. I don't think that the UFO community can even truly define what disclosure means. My disclosure is different from your disclosure, Bob, which is just different from your audience. Okay. So the question is, what is disclosure? Example, my disclosure is I want to know everything. I want to know everything. I want to know what happened with the UFO landing at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964. I want to know about Roswell. I want to know about San Augustine. I want to know about David Adair's rockets. I want to know if Bob Lazar worked at Area 51. I want to know if there is some sort of underwater alien base around Catalina Island that continues to see UFOs. I want to know, what do we know about alien abductions? What if the government has a list of people's names who have been abducted? Do they have that type of program like we saw in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they trade people for other people who've been taken years before. Okay, what about um, Eisenhower? Did he trade humans for technology? There's that rumor out there. That is what disclosure is to me. Okay. I want to know. Let's open up the Pandora's box that's sitting inside the Pentagon and let's get the answers out. Seeing black and white videos from a highly sophisticated FA-18 Hornet, which can shoot in real time and real color. Okay. Getting these grainy photos that, one of the best insults I heard was, we can look at the James Webb telescope and get a clear picture of another galaxy, 152 billion light years away.
Yeah.
Okay, but we get grainy photos from the most sophisticated $60 million jet fighter that's following a UFO.
Load of rubbish in it.
But we have to know what the motive of this is. And it is about technology. Okay. So I've heard people say, whether it's people who are just fans of this subject or, been longtime investigators like Melinda Leslie or Stephen Bassett, where they say, I don't care. I just want the topic discussed. I want it brought out in public. Whatever they give us, they give us. Well, what if they're giving you a lie? What if they're not giving you the truth? They're giving you what they want you to know. That's not disclosure.
That is what you're saying there. What you want to know, that's what they want us to know. Think we know.
Absolutely. And that's where we get into the UAP battle. We see this incredibly calculated narrative of a threat narrative. Even though like countries like mine in Canada have come out and said there is no UFO/UAP threat to Canadian skies. It's happened with other countries as well that have come out and said that. But somehow in the United States, everything's a threat.
Everything.
Okay. Because here's the thing, Bob, that a lot of people forget. Well, they'll say, well, you know what? If these things are flying near our commercial airlines or our fighter pilots, well, it's happening more not over military bases than it is over military bases. It's just a little scarier when it happens over a military base, especially nuclear missile silos. Okay. But this is a phenomena that is happening every single day. I got an incredible set of photographs yesterday. I'm going to be releasing them here very soon. An incredible set of photographs of a jellyfish UFO that was taken at 2:30 yesterday afternoon in Kelowna, British Columbia. And I'm going to be releasing those very soon. Just say, hey, what do you guys think it is? This is weird. Okay. What are they? What are they doing? Is it a drone that has sheets floating off of it so it looks like an octopus or a jellyfish? I don't know. I'm not an expert. Right? So it's interesting. What is disclosure? We can't even define that. Hell, half the people out there can't even define what a woman is anymore or a man. So not being derogatory when I say that, but how are we going to try and press a very controversial subject like UFOs if we can't figure out what disclosure is?
True. What time we got to? About 3 or 4 minutes. What you got planned for the future for yourself then?
Well, I'm going to be preparing here very soon for my second year of investigating our Flight 21 area in the middle of the forest here, about 30 kilometers, about 35 kilometers into the forest, where we have a lot of strange activity out there. I'm going to be working on that. I got some other paranormal ventures coming up in September. I am helping put on what we call Caribou Con, because I live in the Caribou region of British Columbia.
Yeah.
And we are putting on a paranormal UFO Bigfoot conference September 18th through 20th. Tickets are on sale at cariboucon.com right now. Where we got some great speakers coming up, like Grant Cameron, the ladies from Beyond the Haunting television show, many other people that are out there. So it's if you're looking at the website, it's CARIBOOCON.com. So Caribou with 2 O's, con.com. People can get their VIP tickets now. So I'm going to be putting that together, and trying to raise all the money goes towards raising money for our local extremely haunted museum. That's a nonprofit museum. So anything we can do to help out the community, that would be great. And would love to see people there. We'd love to sell about 150, 200 tickets for that event. We haven't opened it up to the public locally yet because people here in my town, they don't plan anything. They just do it. So it's going to be
way.
absolutely
just get on with it.
Absolutely.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
Oh, that's such a hurtful question. It is such a hurtful question, Bob, because I have had a book in the works for about 7 years. I'm about 3/4 done, and I can tell you honestly, I have not worked on it in probably 8, 9 months. And then I'll work on it. I'll get motivated. I'll work on it, and then I will redo it all again. I am horrible with it. Yes, I do have a book. The main reason why I am writing that book is because I want to do it for my kids. That's all. I want to do it for my kids, my grandson, and so that way they have a little bit better understanding of what dad was doing. I'm not, will I publish it? Yeah. Do I think a major publisher is going to get a hold of me and all that kind of stuff? No. It'll probably be self-published. I've had a couple people come up to me, but I just cannot find the time to do anything like creative. That's the big thing, like it's like with growing your YouTube channel. The one thing you need that I don't have a lot of is time. You can do anything you want if you have time.
Yeah.
Right. But if you don't have time, like I'll give you an example of my schedule. Today's a little bit of a rarity because my days off from my daytime job are Wednesdays and Saturdays. So my average day, I start off at 7. I get up at 7:00 in the morning. I will be at work for 8:15, work until 5 p.m. Get home, say, usually on average between 5:10 and 5:30. I will then eat dinner. In the 2-hour span between 5:30 and 7:30, I will eat dinner. I will play the role of husband. I will hang out with my boy. Usually ends up in a violent game of hockey that we're playing, which is really cool. Then at about 7:30 at night, I go into my studio. I start prepping for the radio show that night, which I do Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And then the show goes live at 9:00 until midnight. And then by time I get out of the studio, relaxed and into bed is usually around 12:48 to 1:00 in the morning. So then I go to bed for 6 hours and then do it all again the next day. That's my big routine. So when I complain about time, that's the reason why it's like I don't even have time for a bathroom break, let alone try to figure out how to edit videos, right? So it can be a pain in the butt, but it's all good. I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it.
Yeah, well, you enjoy it. That's why.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it though, my man. I get to talk Monday through Friday night about subjects that I absolutely adore. Let's see. My partner, she goes to bed early. So she's usually in bed by 9:00. Okay. I'm a guy where I don't go to bed usually until at an early time, 11:30, at a late time, 1, 2 in the morning. Like I'm a night owl.
Hmm.
So I can sit there like I've had people say to me in my personal life, "Why don't you just quit the radio show? Why don't you concentrate? Give yourself some time with the family." What time is there? From 9 o'clock until I decide to go to bed. What am I going to do? Watch the sports highlights and rerun for 2 hours? I used to do that when I worked
Mm.
in sports radio. I don't do that anymore. Half the crap on TV I don't like watching, you know? So what am I going to do? I don't have any hobbies, outside of this. I don't have any hobbies, right? In the middle of winter here, I'm not going to go for a nighttime drive where not only do I have to worry about weather conditions and road conditions, but I don't know if there's going to be a moose on the road at night when they're traveling because most animals move at night.
Of course they do.
So, what am I going to do? So I fulfill my own enjoyment every night by hosting the show. And I'm blessed enough to have
Brilliant.
incredible people in our chat room who are way smarter than I could ever be. I just know how to talk on one of these things. I know how to ask questions because that's what I was trained to do in college.
Yeah.
But like I look at the questions that my audience members put out, I would never be able to think of half of them. They're just brilliant, you know? S-
Yeah.
So I get to enjoy what I do. I do. It's
Yeah.
tiring, but I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, you do. Yeah. And I'm glad you do as well.
Thank you.
I do. Yeah. We just had the hour. Thank you very much
Not
for
a
coming
problem.
on the show. My guest on Friday is Dr. Arena Scott. It's ages since she's been on my show. I bet it's about 4 years ago. She's an American author. She's done loads of books on different subjects. So it'd be nice to talk to her on Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, and 7 p in the UK. That's Friday the 23rd of January. I'd like to say thank you very much, Dave, for coming on the
No
show.
problem. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun and you asked great questions. Thank you.
Hey, thank you as well. It always makes two to make a show.
Absolutely. You take care.
You take care as well. Thank you again.